driving the new Jeep Wrangler JK Rubicon Unlimited Edition, transporting kids out of Camp Wamp, a wilderness camp for kids with disabilities in the Sierra Nevada mountain range. The camp is a wonderful experience for the kids, and there's no better vehicle to transport the kids with than a Jeep. The Rubicon Edition is an ideal model for families or those who want a longer wheelbase for transporting camping gear and other equipment. Along with the longer wheelbase of 116 inches, we do need to adjust our driving habit. This is August 4th, and the wildflowers are still blooming. In fact, some of them are just coming in. At this elevation, the snow was so heavy last year that they had to cancel the camp in late July. The snow was so deep along this trail, when they tried to clear it using 988 loaders and that size equipment and a snow blower that's used by highway crews, the snow was actually above the height of the tires. One thing that was very clear on this approach is that the Wrangler's never lost its fantastic approach angle. Departure angle is excellent too, and the Rubicon does have larger tires, which helps a lot. Breakover is good. You have a 116-inch wheelbase to consider here though. Protecting the vehicle is paramount, and in order to do that you need to know where the breakover angle is, the approach angle, and the departure angle of the vehicle. I'm using low range, and that gives us excellent compression braking. I'm not touching the brake except when we come to complete stops. There is manual control of the shift positions, which is very helpful. This is the A580 transmission, 6 speeds forward. Outstanding transmission. You're always in the right gear. You can gear down manually and hold that lower gear on the downgrades, and upshift to whatever gear you need to be in. There's no point on this trail where I need to be in high range, as you can tell. One of the trails out of the camp is actually to Gold Lake. In 2010, we took that trail with the Reno 4-Wheel Drive Club and Hills Angels, and it turned out to be much like the Rubicon in places, short stretches. Lots of rocks. We have the Jeep Cherokee, the magazine's 6-inch long arm lifted 33-inch tire affair. There's a lot of history in this region, a lot of hiking. In fact, the Pacific Crest Trail runs right through this area. Yesterday, coming into the camp, I talked to a couple of folks who were actually walking from Mexico to Canada, and they were well on their way. They had passed Gold Lake, and they were on the trail adjacent to where we are right now. The JK Wrangler is just doing superbly. It's a great vehicle. It has real balance. I'm used to beam axles, and of course this vehicle has beam axles, just like the Jeep TJ that we see up ahead of us. It's a tradition with Jeep. The Wrangler models and the CJs, all the way back to the World War II model, having beam axles front and rear. Link and coil suspension makes a huge difference, especially in rocky terrain like we're experiencing right now. The ride quality is excellent, and the longer wheelbase on this vehicle lends itself to some exceptional directional stability on the highway. This is an all-around good package. It would be ideal for a family. Plenty of seating, exceptional off-road capability, all-season safety. Under the hood of this new Wrangler is the Pentastar 3.6-liter V6. The engine is an absolute home run. I mentioned that it's a V6, but you can dismiss any thoughts about, well, it probably needs a V8 as much as this thing weighs. Disregard that. Suspend your thinking about V6 engines. This is an entirely different paradigm. And what we discovered at the launch of the 2012 model, when the Pentastar was introduced to the Wrangler, is that this engine has a very quick torque rise. The torque comes in by 2,000 RPM almost to its peak. It has a little blip on the top around 4,000 RPM. So unfortunately, the posted torque peak is at a rather high RPM. What you need to look at is the torque curve for this engine, because in reality, its rising torque is much like a diesel engine, and it actually is usable power at a very low speed. That's where the vehicle gets its strong pull, and that's where the vehicle gets exceptional fuel mileage, considering the weight package. EPA highway rating on this vehicle is 20 miles to the gallon, and that's pretty respectable considering the curb weight of over 2 tons. Loaded with equipment, this vehicle could easily be 5,500 pounds with cargo and occupants. For most folks, this is all the four-wheeling challenge they could ever want, given that the equipment that comes stock on a Rubicon edition is just perfect. You have the oversized tires, you have the low range ratio. It's just a great combination for off-pavement use. Lockers front and rear are the frosting on the cake. This is a tractable, very versatile off-pavement vehicle. Jeep has always been a lifestyle in our family. We're 3 generations into Jeep four-wheel drive off-pavement vehicles. And I've got to say that the JK Wrangler Rubicon Edition especially is every bit the tradition that Jeep carries forth from 1941. The appointments in this vehicle are pretty impressive too. The navigation system is terrific. The other features that I like include an exceptional air conditioning system, which right now I'm using because I want to pressurize this cabin. I have all the windows up. This is a hardtop model, and I'm actually luxuriating in the climate without dust. Literally, there is no dust inside this vehicle. It's worth mentioning that opening and closing the doors, you notice that there's a firm door seal around each of the doors on the new Wrangler. There's no dust accumulating in the cabin, and that's due largely to the quality of the door seals and other body sealing areas. Notice how well this engine decelerates using low range. It's a practical place to be on a road like this because there's so much of a change up here with steep downslopes, a lot of rocky stretches. You're not on the brakes a lot, you're not listening to ABS functions or anything like that. Low range is a very sensible place to be. I'm not using the brakes, I'm just backing off on the throttle. If we need to go faster, the transmission will upshift. I'm watching the tachometer, staying below 2,000 RPM. Off pavement, you burn fuel on the basis of how many hours you're on the trail, not how many miles you've gone. Keep track of your hours of fuel consumption. This carpet of wildflowers is typical for this time of year at this elevation. We're at 7,361 feet at this point. We're close to Highway 89 that runs down to Truckee, California, and from Truckee to Lake Tahoe. Highway 89 runs down the west side of Lake Tahoe. When you're going to the Rubicon, one of the accesses is off of Highway 89. Those who are coming out of SUVs or even passenger cars would be quite impressed with the versatility firsthand of this vehicle, but also its appointments in terms of comfort and ride quality and seating. We're approaching a better road now. So what I'm going to do here, since we can make some time, is come out of low range, put the shifter in neutral, move the transfer case lever to high range four-wheel drive. We can keep our four-wheel drive traction. We're on loose surface here. And we're now in high range. You'll hear a distinctly different pitch in the engine, and we can pick up speed here. Again, this is not a speed contest, and I'm trying to keep the dust level down for folks that are behind me with kids in the back and no top on. Many of the kids' hands went up in the air when volunteers were called for riding in those vehicles that have the tops down. I'm leaving a large plume of dust behind me, and each of the vehicles does. We're spacing out a bit. We don't want the kids to be saturated with dust. Some of them have severe breathing problems to start with, and the last thing they need is to be drenched in dust. It's a real pleasure. There are no rattles, there are no issues with vibration. Very smooth vehicle. Powertrain is excellent. we're making time now. And one thing to bear in mind on a road like this, if you notice, not only is there a sheer drop-off to our right, but another vehicle could be coming the opposite direction, and the last thing we need to do is to have to slam on the brakes to avoid someone, or do an evasive maneuver on a road that's this narrow. So use common sense and judgment when you're driving on a single-width road like this. With this good grading, you see other vehicles around, there are a lot of tire tracks. Chances are somebody's going to be around the blind corner. Be prepared to avoid them or stop if necessary. When you do have to apply the brakes, do it gradually. In high range, downshifting is not a huge gap in ratio. When you're in low range and manually downshift, it's literally like putting the brakes on. And I'm going to go ahead and downshift after I've applied the brakes. I'm going to hold the vehicle in that downshifted position. This is about a 6 or 7% grade, maybe as much as 8. And just pays for us not to get carried away with speed. Want to be able to stop when I need to. Again, I'm trying to keep the dust level down behind me for the sake of the other vehicles. And one sensitizes you to special needs that people have. It would be great if every teenager that they're the same age, kids who have disabilities, get a sense for special needs and what that really means, even in outdoor and recreational environments.